Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. If you are an Oregon fan and you enjoy following the recruiting trail, boy, do we have a fascinating storyline that is starting to emerge. Four-star quarterback Jake Nawrot making a return trip to Eugene, Oregon. Now, the reason this fascinates me is he was just on campus a couple of days ago, and now he's making his way back out to Eugene, Oregon. Reading through the tea leaves, this seems to be heating up a little bit. Now, why is this a big deal? Why is this a little bit of a surprise? Well, over the last couple of months, it seemed like Will Menzel was the guy. Not only was Will Menzel the number one quarterback target for Dan Lanning in Oregon, it seemed like Will Menzel had Oregon running number one in his recruitment as well. And now over the last, 24, 48 hours, it seems to be shifting a little bit. And the attention has seemingly gone towards four-star quarterback Jake Nawrot. I'm going to put my hand up right off the bat. If I'm an Oregon fan, I am beyond fired up about this. And it has nothing to do with anti-Will Menzel sentiment. I think Will Menzel going to be a really good quarterback, whether it's at Oregon, whether it's at a different program. This kid, he fires me up. Now, I think there's a lot of Oregon fans that are saying, well, why don't he have 5 stars next to his name? Look, I would bet that he's going to have 5 stars next to his name when it's all said and done, and we're signing our papers in December. Why does he not have 5 stars next to his name right now? Very obvious answer. He's a first-year starter as a junior in high school, right? I mean, you look at a lot of these other quarterbacks that are at the tops of the country. A lot of these guys have been starting quarterbacks since their freshman year. Jake Nawrot, first-year starter as a junior in high school. It's 5-star film. It's 5-star production. It's 5-star athletic traits. I think he just needs to do it again his senior year. When you dive into Jake Nawrot, the first thing that stands out to me is how easy the sport seems to be for him at the quarterback position for being a first-year starter. I mean, go look at the production, 41 touchdowns to only 2 interceptions with a 71% completion percentage and over 3,000 passing yards, playing 7A football in the state of Illinois. Now, it might not be the best high school football in the country, but it ain't a cakewalk either, right? And so you're looking at this kid, not a ton of experience at the quarterback position, has a basketball background, steps onto the football field, and he is absolutely ripping the pill all over the yard. Beautiful deep ball, just dripping with natural arm talent. The easy velocity that this kid can put on the football, it feels a little bit different to go along with just an extraordinary comfortability at the quarterback position in terms of how he manages a pocket and how he can get himself out of trouble and how he can throw off platform. I mean, one of the things that I love most about him is not just the production. Again, the production is absolutely incredible for a first-year starter, but when you turn on the film, hey, I can beat you from the pocket, but I can also flash some athleticism. I can get myself out of trouble. I can throw off platform. I can push that sucker down the field. Now, why is this a big deal? Look, Oregon did not end up taking a quarterback in 2026. I mean, they took Bryson Beavers, but he transferred to Georgia since then, right? And so if you're Dan Lanning in Oregon, you want to make sure you add a quarterback in this class. And ideally, you want the quarterback to be elite. I think this kid's elite. When you are having a conversation, you evaluate quarterbacks in a lot of different ways. You obviously evaluate what you see on the film is incredibly impressive. The notes that I'm reading about his in-person evaluations thrown at some of the Elite 11 camps, big box check there. He's 6'4", 200 pounds, has the production to back it up as well. This kid checks 5 stars off his list at every single box you want to check. We're going to get a little bit into his film. We're going to talk a little bit about where Oregon might be going next on the recruiting show, because we said this the other day, I believe Monday afternoon. It does feel like Oregon's starting to put this sucker into gear a little bit. And this happens every single year where Oregon might get off to a little bit of a slow start, but at some point, Dan Lanning decides to put the pedal to the metal, and all of a sudden you look up and it's top 5 class in the country. You're getting the sense that that's where things are trending for Oregon on the recruiting trail. So we'll talk about some other names to monitor going forward as well. Before we get into it, as always, to the Oregon fans, appreciate you guys. And look, I get that this isn't for everybody. There's a lot of Oregon fans that are saying, hey, let me know when these guys commit. There are a lot of Oregon fans that might just say, hey, I don't really care about the recruit, and just let me know when we're kicking off in August and September. I think this stuff matters. I mean, you talk about the reason you've seen Dan Lanning and Oregon climb the ranks of college football. It's these type of moments in the spring, summer, and winter. Appreciate you guys who are rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. This is arguably my favorite part about the sport, how these teams go about building their rosters, and this kid fires me up. Now, let's just watch a little bit of them. And again, this is, I feel like I need to caveat this every single time. This is this kid's first year starting a quarterback at the high school ranks, right? And what he does with the football is incredible. I mean, the first thing is that this deep ball and how easy it seems to be for him to access down the field. I mean, just it's easy. And he's dropping it into the bucket pretty darn consistently. How about this? How about, I mean, and this is another thing. It's one thing to talk about just pure arm talent. What about managing the pocket, right? I mean, we're stepping up, we're setting our feet, and we're attacking the middle of the field, and we're going to throw our wide receiver into a throwing window. I mean, he's not afraid to attack the middle of the field, challenge tight windows. At the same time, look, we got to get ourselves out of trouble and go be an athlete, be a playmaker. We can do that. This is a big-time rip. Cross body, cross the field. There's not a lot of quarterbacks that can make that kind of throw, right? And then again, it's just standing right into the pocket, stepping up. No, he's going to take some heat, and we're going to drop this right into the bucket in the back of the end zone. I mean, it's another good play. Again, you talk about just like natural quarterback ability. We're looking at zone coverage, and we got to throw our pass catcher into a throwing window. And he's doing it with Ante. I mean, he's getting ready to throw this football before his wide receiver's eyes are around. That ball's out before that wide receiver is even around, and it hits him right in the face mask. It's natural for this kid. And so not only is he physically one of the gifted quarterbacks that you see in the country, at least in my opinion, 6'4", 200 pounds, doesn't flash a ton of athleticism on the film, but when he does, it's very clear he's a good enough athlete that can get involved in some quarterback design runs. He ain't going to be Michael Vick, but he's a good enough athlete to be a playmaker outside the pocket and in those design quarterback run situations. I went out and watched him as a basketball player. Not went out, but I did turn on some of his basketball stuff. Legit athlete here. But again, it's the not only the physical capabilities, but it's more just this it factor. And how about the accuracy? Like on the run, there's really only one spot that we can foot this football, and we're putting it in the exact spot we need to, right? That is as good as it gets. This kid, I think, I'll go out and say this. If we're talking about Jake Nawrot finishing as the number one quarterback in the country after his senior year, wouldn't be surprised. I think that's how good this kid is. Now, where's Oregon going next? I think this is one of the situations where I think Oregon would be fine taking Will Menzel. I think it's one of the situations of do your business or get off the pot, so to speak, right? I mean, Will Menzel taking a visit to Miami. That sounds like he's not going to go to Miami. Auburn's pushing hard. Penn State's pushing hard. Oregon has been leading that recruitment for the last 3 months. And look, there's another quarterback on the board that at this point, to me, it's getting the vibe of first come, first serve. We're going to take one quarterback in this class, and whoever commits first going to get the spot. Not a bad situation to be in because you got two of the best quarterbacks in the country that Oregon seems to be building a lot of momentum with. Now, what else? Where else? What are the storylines? To me, there's so much buzz around, 4-star cornerback Hayden Stepp from Bishop Gorman, 5-star cornerback Dante Wright from California. And look, I understand those guys are intriguing names to monitor. If I'm an Oregon fan, if I'm Dan Lanning, if I'm trying to build this roster the right way, there are some other priorities that I would like to start with, right? I mean, when I look at if Oregon only takes one cornerback and one safety, that to me is not that big of a deal. Like you already have a logjam a little bit as it is in the secondary. You got an embarrassment of riches. There are other position groups that I'm looking at and saying, for the future of Oregon football, they seem to be more important, especially at positions where, man, it's hard to address in the portal. We talk about this all the time. If you need to go get a wide receiver in the portal, dime a dozen. Oregon's had plenty of success going to the portal for wide receivers. What is really hard to do on a consistent basis, lines of scrimmage. When you look at it and you're saying, well, we're going to lose all 4 of our starting defensive linemen after this year. you have a nice pipeline of talent, but I don't think it's good enough. So if I'm Dan Lanning in Oregon, I'm less concerned about some of these flashy defensive backs, and I'm more concerned about a Marcus Fikedu or a Casey Curry, who I think is an absolute stud. I think he might be the most day one ready out of the bunch. Now, it sounds like he really wants to go to the SEC. If I'm Oregon, I'm trying to keep him on the West Coast. And it sounds like USC's not involved in that one. That's what I'd want to get done. Jalen Brewster and DJ Jacobs, they're kind of on the island of their own. Like, why I would prioritize those two guys the most. Even if you're only going to take 20 guys in the class, make sure it includes one of Jalen Brewster, DJ Jacobs, or both. The answer, the reason why is it's kind of two birds with one stone. Not only are you getting what I think can be future first-round NFL draft picks, like future legitimate game records, but you're getting two guys that I think would have the chance to play early to help this football team immediately in 2027. And so it's essentially like you're going to the portal too and grabbing a good football player. That's just going to be with your program for the next 3 to 4 years. That is to me the storyline here. We got to get this pipeline right. I think you've done a nice job on the offensive line. That's not to say you want to not recruit the offensive line, because there's some really good offensive linemen that Oregon's going after. The defensive line needs to be the priority. And I think you've done a really nice job at the edge position. I'm a massive fan of Rashad Streets. We need some big bodies that can come and play for us in 2027. Not only do we need bodies, we need guys, or ideally would want guys that can help us next year. Because you look at and saying, if you want to go to the transfer portal and find those names, it's just really hard to do. We'll see how Oregon does things. You got a nice surprise visit. We'll see if we're breaking down the commitment at some point over the next couple of days and weeks. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.